Hi, welcome to my franchise review for Jumanji. This is probably more of a rewatch since I'd already seen the sequels, but I'd never seen the original up until this week. I'm just going to be talking mostly about the three films within this franchise, while I will briefly touch on its spiritual sister film, Zathura. Let's get it started right away with Jumanji from 1995. A magical board game unleashes a world of adventure on siblings Peter and Judy Shepard. While exploring an old mansion, the youngsters find a curious jungle-themed game called Jumanji in the attic. When they start playing, they free Alan Parrish, who's been stuck in the game's inner world for decades. If they win Jumanji, the kids can free Alan for good, but that means braving giant bugs, ill-mannered monkeys, and even stampeding rhinos. This is available for streaming on Netflix and Crave in Canada and on Sling TV and Freevee in the US. I found that there were a lot of similarities between this film and Zathura, which came out about a decade later. Considering they were both based on books written by the same author, I'm not really surprised. Although, online I have read that the books slightly connect to each other. I do think I may have enjoyed this film more had I seen it before watching that film, although I will say this film is much better acted than Zathura. I actually did rewatch it for this review. I'm not going to really be talking about that, though. The special effects didn't hold up as well as Zathura's did, and the story didn't hit me as hard as Zathura did either when I was a kid anyway. But Zathura, using practical effects, it worked to its benefit since they hold up a lot better than the special effects used in this film, Jumanji. The problem with Zathura, though, is that there's some annoying child acting from Josh Hutcherson and Jonah Bobo. It's something, this movie I will believe is something that kids will enjoy and those who grew up with it will enjoy, but if you missed this one when you were growing up, it may be less of a pleasant experience. I'm saying this even though I enjoyed it overall and gave it a rating of 3.5 out of 5. Let's move on to the sequel, Jumanji Welcome to the Jungle. Four high school kids discover an old video game console and are drawn into the game's jungle setting, literally becoming the adult avatars they chose. What they discover is that you don't just play Jumanji, you must survive it. To beat the game and return to the real world, they'll have to go on the most dangerous adventure of their lives, discover what Alan Parrish left 20 years ago, and change the way they think about themselves, or they'll be stuck in the game forever. This is available for streaming on Crave in Canada and on Starz and DirecTV in the US. I found this to be a decently fun adventure continuation to the original. I feel as though some of the comedy worked and some didn't, as with many comedy films of the 2010s, especially when they try their hand at reference humor. The cast had pretty great chemistry, and the video game counterparts embodied their real-life characters. I would say that they're actually better than their real-world characters. Jack Black carried this film, portraying the popular high school teenage girl. Dwayne Johnson was surprisingly competent at playing the insecure, scared video game nerd, although some may compare this and say it reminds them of his earlier work, like The Game Plan, which he was more likable then. Karen Gillan also did a pretty good job in her role, while Kevin Hart and Nick Jonas were okay in their roles. The biggest issue is that the villain isn't really necessary because he doesn't really do much at all and is very forgettable and could have been cut entirely, and there wouldn't have been much of a difference to the overall plot. A nitpick I have with this movie includes how I saw at the end of Jumanji, the game board seemed to be in France, while with this film, it begins with it on the beach in the same place as the last film. Overall, on this rewatch, I ended up dropping my rating from its original 4 out of 5 to a 3.5 out of 5, on par with the original film. Now let's move on to Jumanji: The Next Level. When Spencer goes back into the fantastical world of Jumanji, pals Martha, Fridge, and Bethany re-enter the game to bring him home. But the game is now broken and fighting back. Everything the friends know about Jumanji is about to change as they soon discover there's more obstacles and more danger to overcome. This is available for streaming on Netflix in Canada and on Starz and DirecTV in the US. While this is still a decent adventure film, Most of the comedic elements felt stale and overplayed, whether they were lazy callbacks to its predecessor or jokes that overstayed their welcome, such as the senior citizens not really understanding anything within Jumanji. Jack Black was still carrying this film, and even got to play another style of character. Kevin Hart and Dwayne Johnson also get a chance to play new characters, and I think Kevin Hart did a better job, but Dwayne Johnson was okay too. Karen Gillan continues to do a good job, even though she mostly only plays the same role as before. The story for this film is about on par with the other sequel, with another fairly forgettable villain, despite having a better backstory. What angered me the most was the post-credit scene tease of a sequel, because I just don't think it needed another one. I really feel as though it didn't need another sequel. I think if they do another sequel, bringing it into the real world is a smart idea. Although what I will say in doing so is, while it will bring it closer to the original film, it will also probably have way too big a cast with all the 4 teenagers, the 4 adults, and potentially more adults, whether it's people who were in the game or people in the real world. It's just, I think it's going to be too much. What I'd almost rather see is them do something similar with what they did with Welcome to the Jungle to Zathura, because I think they could really do something interesting with it. And just if they gave it a chance, but I don't think that's gonna happen. There's Jack Black also had an idea of putting in basically where the games came from, and basically having the games originated from alien tech, so that would be a way to kind of connect the Zathura franchise with Jumanji. I don't know that that's a good idea either, so I just honestly think that this film, Jumanji The Next Level, should be the end of the franchise. But I know they're probably going to do another one, because there was some critical enjoyment of this film, and it made a lot of money at the box office. Overall, I would say this is an okay film sequel, and what I would probably consider the least enjoyable of the Jumanji trilogy, and if you add Zathura in there, it would be at the bottom. I rated this a 3 out of 5. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more from me, hit the subscribe button. If you have any recommendations of films I should see or thoughts about these films, please leave a comment down below. My next video will likely be a franchise review for the Ocean's trilogy. Thanks again for watching, and just know that this game sucks.